Hey champions, it is Sunday. I hope you're having a wonderful day. Sorry that this vlog's coming out a little bit late, but it's the weekend. I decided to sleep in a little bit. This has kind of been the pattern for Sunday videos. I hope you're expecting it at this point. And also, I don't think I'm going to be doing videos on Saturdays anymore. It's my day off. I don't want to touch my computer. I don't want to think about work, so I'm not going to anymore. So Saturdays I won't be putting out a vlog, but I'll have them out the other 6 days of the week. Uh, and then the other thing, I got a new headset. I did not realize that there was a static sound that was coming from my old microphone. So I stopped using this thing. It was really good. I've had it for about 5 years, 4 or 5 years. It's just ran its course. I don't need it anymore. I'm using this. If the sound's a bit quiet, let me know. Let me know how the experience is, and I will adjust things and try to make them as good as possible. All right, so today I want to tackle a topic that I saw floating around in one of the Discord channels, and that's I think JC actually put it out there asking the future leaguers on like how do you find inspiration for card design, and I was like, you know what, that's a pretty fun topic. I want to talk about it myself. I know we've actually done I've done a bunch of videos about this in the past, but it's an ever-growing topic. I don't think it ever really stops. But really, at the end of the day, it comes down to one thing, which is experience life. You have to not just do something over and over again and learn the one thing. You should learn as much as you can about everything. So a little bit about my past. My dad's a polymath. He is one of the smartest people, if not the smartest person I've ever met in my life. And the one thing he does that I really, really appreciate and love, and I model my own life off of, is he learns everything about everything. There's no topic that he thinks is not worth his time. He will research it and watch videos and learn from experts and grow in every field he could possibly do that. And that's something that I really admire and I think is very valuable if you want to understand a large topic or grow in a very complex space. Like game design is definitely one of them, but there's so many other disciplines where I do recommend learning as much as you can. It's one of the things that made me very useful as a software tester, is because not only could I understand the software very well from my computer science background, and not only did I understand how to communicate with the end users in well, not realistically, but in a way I can understand language a little bit better because of my linguistics background. But I spent time learning about a bunch of different fields, and if I was working on some software that was in a field I did not learn and did not know a lot about, I didn't just spend my time understanding the software. I would spend my time understanding the field. So, for example, spent a lot of time in the healthcare space. I befriended a lot of nurses and pharmacists and doctors, and as one of my best friends became a doctor, I used to ask him a bunch of questions about the industry and what was the experience, going to med school, what was the experience being a doctor at a hospital, and learning all those things, because that allows you to not just understand your own position and your own goals, but also put yourself in the end user state. So when I come about designing Genesis, it is not just understanding what I want the set to do, but it's also how the players experience the game, and the lore that's around the game and what is there to dig into. So a lot of the things that are in the game, if you haven't spent the time researching them, just Google search them. You'll realize that Genesis results are not the only thing that would appear for them. Casmodon, Lulukokore, Yamaduta, Yamaraja, these are things from other mythologies that we tried our best to understand and not just shoehorn into the game, but respect the mythology and the tradition that they came from and give our own interpretation of them, because a lot of lore and mythology is open for interpretation. So that's one of the things. The other thing that really inspired me to go out there and learn more about game design is a video from Extra Credits. They did a great video talking about what you need if you want to be a good game designer, what skills you should learn. And a lot of what I'm talking about is just a rehash of what they've said. So go watch that video. I will try my best to find it and leave a link. If I can find it, I'll leave the link up here. If I can't, then I do recommend going to find it yourself. And another thing that definitely helped me a lot was to challenge your own learning. Don't just assume you know everything about something. Be willing to dig into it, challenge what you've learned, question authorities, and figure out, is there more to this mythology that you can represent better in your own game? Is there more to this this card design that you can challenge? I learned a lot about fighting techniques to make some of the techniques in Genesis work, and I'm still learning about that because that's not something that I was verbose in when I started designing Genesis, but it's something that I am slowly learning. Now, I don't do as much of the game design as I used to. Like all of Alpha and Beta, I design myself, but Origins itself, I think Alex and I split most of it. And then moving into Invasions, a lot of it's on his plate, but it doesn't mean that I stopped learning. It doesn't mean that I stopped being inspired, because I'm currently working on some of the stuff that's coming up in down the pipeline for Genesis. And as I do that, I have to continue doing my research. So those are things that if you're looking for inspiration, you're designing your own game, or you want to design your own. One thing that I would not be offended by if you wanted to do it yourself was make your own Genesis cards that you played with in your own community. If that's something you're interested in doing and you're trying to figure out how to approach designing your own Genesis cards, then this is something I recommend doing. Another great place for this is acting or RPGs, because in either of those spaces you have to create much more rich narratives, or even writing fan fiction. You have to create a world, you have to create mythology around it, and you have to justify all the actions of the characters who are in it. And that helps a lot when it comes to design. So those are just some of the things that I take with me. If you have any suggestions on what you do to inspire yourself to grow in your own field of discipline, then share with me. I'd love to know what you do, especially if it's something different than what I do. I love learning, and I would love to have those conversations with you. All right, today I'm going to do a spotlight on Walls of Vadhis. Talking about lore, talking about growth, talking about mythology, I think Walls of Vadhis is a good place to kind of work on this. So this is the first alteration that I think I've covered in a spotlight, but this is a 5G alteration, 8 health, Vellum only, action, 8 aura. Create this card, which means placing it on an unoccupied spot in the arena, which is not just adjacent to you. This is any spot in the arena. And then Walls of Vadhis has a continuous ability which says champion summons cannot move onto Walls of Vadhis. This artwork was done by Philip. I created it. Flavor text is coming straight from the Akashic Codex, our lore, which is so part 1, which is the Welcome to Jelara's part, and then chapter 11. So go read that chapter if you want larger context to what this flavor text is talking about. The artwork itself is just amazing. You got Raha staring off into no man's land, staring off into the Vishud encampment, and just contemplating, being left with her thoughts. This card was originally planted in Welcome to Jelara, but it actually has a predecessor, a card that this was based off of, that we really were trying to understand Genesis with. So the original card, Fortification, a 10 health, 5G, costing 12 aura, and Fortification said this spot is considered occupied. Now, not being able to move onto a spot and a spot considered occupied are actually functionally different, and this is going to matter quite a bit as the game grows. So in one regards, Fortification, because it occupies the spot, angels or anything with flight and aerial can move over Fortification, but they can't move over Walls of Vadhis because they can't move onto that spot. But because Fortification occupies the spot that it's on, this also means that cards like any trap mechanic that you would see, libraries gates, or spike pits can also be placed onto Fortification if needed. So as the game grows, these are going to have very important distinctions, but as of right now, they're very subtle, and you don't see a huge difference in them. One of the cool things about Fortification that I love telling people is that actually Fortification was the first time where Odara was referenced. Odara's story arc was planned since the very beginning. So she's not a champion who was just shoehorned into the game. She was someone who was there from the very, very beginning, because Fortification was one of the cards that actually appeared in the Alpha starter kit, including Essence String. So Core and Odara were planned really, really early on. Erica and Kun were planned much later as we got closer to designing Rays. So let's talk about Walls of Vadhis. So again, we come back to the 10% rule. I love this because when it comes to understanding your timeline and what cards you should be spamming or running high quantities of, you should be looking at that 10%. So for Walls of Vadhis, if you're running it in Raha, this is less than 10% of her starting aura, which means that you can play quite a few of these. So I wouldn't, if you love Walls of Vadhis, then running 8 to 10 of them isn't terrible. It can help you a lot. But if you want to just run 1 or 2, I mean, it's a card that comfortably fits into everyone's deck, where Fortification didn't. At 12 aura, then you're looking at a champion who starts with 120. That's not... like, unless you're running Nubia, you're probably not going to run Fortification in a Raha deck, but you'll run Walls of Vadhis in a Raha deck. And she can play them pretty comfortably. The other part about it is it does give you a lot more time to breathe. So it's a card that I do recommend you trying it out. I think there's a lot of value added. I just think people are too used to the game or the game's meta being so fast that you don't get the opportunity to... How do I put this? The game's so fast that you don't think you can build up these walls and really harm your opponent. But between cards like Walls of Vadhis and Angel's Embrace, you can slow the game down and you can start sniping people off, because there's a lot of great summons, especially in Bellum and in Axon, that can help you snipe things off, including Goliath Sphinx Eater, and... Oh, I'm blanking on it. Androthera. These are really, really strong summons. And then even a Guardian of Balance, which, because of its positioning, Walls of Vadhis can stop your opponent from being able to get to the Guardian, but the Guardian can still swing at your opponent. So there's a lot of value add to this card. The big reason why we don't see it in meta play is I don't think a lot of people who play meta take this card, can play with this card in a very optimized way. It really requires a very specific board state to become very powerful, and the consistency of that board state is where that challenge comes about. That's my thought behind it, but if you're someone who plays competitively, plays at the meta scene a lot more for Genesis, let me know from your perspective, why don't you run Walls of Vadhis? Because I think it's a very solid card to run maybe 3 or 4 of in a regular deck, and if you're playing around it, running 8 or 9 of them can definitely be very valuable. And then on the casual front, I think in multiplayer, this card is phenomenal. Like, it really disrupt, if there's a particular feud going on in the game, it can disrupt that, which could either create an ally for you or create an enemy for someone else. You can lock someone in and be like, no, you two have to face against each other. Don't deal with us. So it's a very, very fun card to have in those sense. And then the other cool thing about it is, especially if you combo it up with a card like Smoke Bomb, you're able to create it right behind you, do your action when your opponent comes to threaten you. You can Smoke Bomb behind the Walls of Vadhis, giving you significantly more distance than what a normal Smoke Bomb would, because this card just blocks your opponent from getting in. So that's everything I have to say about Walls of Vadhis. This is a card that I personally really, really love, and I wish more people played it frequently. So that's it for today. Have a wonderful day, and I'll talk to you again tomorrow. Bye.